Yeah. So last week we discussed this progression that goes from Yira to Yichol to discovering the Chesed and a greater Dvar Hashem, which is his Chesed. We showed this in Mizmor Lamed Gimel and in Mizmor Kuf Mem Zayin. These elements of Yira, so as we discussed, that the Yira makes you realize that there's something greater, and then you hope for that. That means you direct your Yira, your recognition that you don't know everything, you direct it towards Hashem, and that's called Mi'achal L'chastai, and then that leads to a davar, a word of Hashem, meaning a clarity about the ways of Hashem. That was something more than you realized before. That's Mizmor Lamed Gimel, Kuf Mem Zayin. And Shmuel pointed out last week after the shir, I wanted to repeat that in Mizmor Kuf Lamed we have the same thing. And there it says, with some additions to what you said, there it says, Im avonos tishmer ya Adonai miyamid. So Hashem is not shomer avonos, ki im chas licha lemanti b'hi. So he's not shomer avonos, and that leads to Yira. And the next pasuk talks about hoping for the davar, dvar yichalti. So there we have the same thing of there's a Yira, and because of the Yira, there's a hope for a davar. Okay? And the next pasuk talks about being shomer for Hashem, shomer laboker. So there's what we're waiting for, what we're looking forward to. Hashem is not shomer lavonis, instead there's Yira. And because there's Yira, we look forward to some greater davar. We're shomer for that. So similar to what we have in our parasha, which is that Yaakov is of our shomer as a davar, of shomer as a davar. So there's this waiting for the davar. And the medium to get that greater davar is Yira. Okay? Fine. Let's go now further. Paragraph Beis, Pasuk Lamed Zayin. Reuven makes a strange offer. If you had like a chapter title. Reuven makes a strange offer. Reuven el aviv leimar. Es shnei vonai Thomas im loy avienu elecha. So Reuven offers that Yaakov should kill two of his sons. There's a question of whether Es Shnei Vonai suggests that there are specific two sons. So the syntax over there, the dictic of Es Shnei Vonai, because Reuven had 4 sons in total. So some say Es Shnei means the 2 sons of mine, in which case, but he had 4. So maybe he only had 2 at this point. Okay, no clear pshat. Some say it doesn't have to mean that Es Shnei could mean 2 of. Okay, that's a dicta question that greater medactikim than I have contemplated, and I have nothing to say on that.
You're saying he's giving 2 for 1?
Ah, well, so yeah, there's a 2 for 1, or maybe it's 2 because it's Shimon and Binyamin that hang in the balance, as Yaakov said on last.
So he's promising Shimon also. That's part of the.
Well, if Binyamin comes back, then Shimon comes back. So
that's
maybe Shimon hinges on Binyamin, right? Okay. So as we said last week, and I found this in Yosef B'chor Shar, just this point, this doesn't explain what Reuven is offering. In other words, obviously the question is obvious. Is Yaakov going to kill his children? And what kind of bad idea is this, that somehow this would solve something? So we said last week, and I found Yosef B'chor Shar says that since Yaakov said in the last pasuk that he's the only one who's suffering, so Yaakov only considers the loss of children to be a meaningful risk. So Reuven is saying, okay, I'll put myself in the same position now. That obviously doesn't solve the problem of what does Reuven really mean. And what does Thomas mean? Just that point that this follows on the heels of the next pasuk. But
nature's determined that will never happen.
Right. So now, okay. So here's the thing. Right. There's 2 ways to read the pasuk in, let's say, let's call it pshat. One is, let's say, that but else is what you said, that it's just a way of saying it's not going to happen. Is that what you mean? No, but then it doesn't mean anything. That's the thing. So the Rabbanel says it's really 2 in the same shot. The pashut pshat in the pasuk is that we've been saying mamish shtuyot, and Yaakov doesn't answer him. Yaakov just says, Lo yer b'nei yimachem. He doesn't deal with his offer. He just says no. He just Lo yer b'nei yimachem. What about Reuven offered something? No. He just says no. So the Ibn Ezra makes this point. The Ibn Ezra says the following. He says, Yesh Ayimim Thomas means ta'anish. You'll punish them. And Yesh Ayimim Thomas is that he's turning to Hashem. It's a tefillah to Hashem.
Like Yaakov did for the Racha. What I mean.
What?
With the Rava. They said that whoever will die.
Okay. No, there he might mean
It was
either it's a curse or it's a punishment.
Did he really want them to die? If they
Yeah, probably.
Even someone of his sons or what?
For stealing.
He knew.
He knew that they didn't. What do you mean?
But even if he did know,
I don't know. It's asmachta. Okay, right. So one second. So that's about that's Ibn Ezra says. Ibn Ezra says like this: Yesh Amim Tonomus needs tanish. Yesh Amim that's a tefillah to Hashem. Klal Hadover says the Ibn Ezra. Klal Hadover that if he was saying something appropriate, Yaakov wouldn't have ignored his offer. In other words, Ibn Ezra is saying you're supposed to read these psukim pshat that Reuven is saying something ridiculous. That's he's supposed to read it, which is why Yaakov doesn't answer. So everyone who's trying to justify what Reuven said and say, okay, Thomas doesn't mean you'll kill them, Thomas means Tanish, or Thomas means he's talking to Hashem, he's not talking to Yaakov, says Ibn Ezra, really, you're supposed to read the pasuk as Reuven saying something nonsensical. Vaharaya, Yaakov ignored his offer and just said, no, just reiterate. Okay, but the Rabbanel says like that. So Rabbanel says that it's just a way of saying it's not going to happen. Okay, but again, those two things go together because, okay, so what are you saying? You know, so you're not saying anything. You're not really saying anything, and that's also very important because this whole theme of Reuven attempting to accomplish something and not succeeding, and then Yehudah does it right in the next parak where there's no food anymore, and Yehudah says, convinces his father, and he deals with him, and he explains to him why we have to do this, and there's no other way. So the same thing is repeating what happened in the story of Yosef, where Reuven and Yehudah both act in character. Reuven tells the brothers, Al tishbechul dam, and okay, they don't. But instead, they throw him to a pit, and eventually Reuven loses track of what's going on. So Reuven is in his attempt to save Yosef, lahashiva yalav. Here too, he says, he's dictatorial. He just tells him what to do as the eldest brother, and he's very confident that he knows what to do, and he'll get everyone to bend to his way. It doesn't quite work in the Reuven story, in the Yosef story. Well, I mean, it works to some extent, but the one who actually takes control is Yehudah, who works with his brothers. He argues with them, and there by Yehudah it says vayishmu'u echav, while to Reuven it doesn't say vayishmu'u because he tries to lead by force of his certainty instead of by creating consensus, let's say. So then the fact that Reuven is saying something like saying, okay, kill my sons if I don't do it, is basically saying, I'm so certain I'm going to do it, I'm willing to do that. It's not really offering anything. It's just a way of saying, everyone trust me. And that doesn't really work. And that's the point. So I'm saying that's the point of the pasuk, that there's a Reuven as opposed to Yehudah, and Yehudah is going to take over the leadership of the brethren, even though Reuven is the oldest. So that's the idea that Yehudah is a better leader than Reuven, yeah.
But they actually listened to Reuven, just that Yehudah overrided Reuven bets in there.
Well, by Yosef? Right, so they listened, but the thing is that Reuven's intention wasn't fulfilled because Reuven wanted to save Yosef. So they listened, they just followed orders, but he didn't achieve what he wanted to really achieve.
It's also, they listened, they followed the letter.
Right, exactly, right.
He would eventually die there.
Well, he would have eventually died there, right. Not for Yehudah, right.
Right, but Reuven, that's what he said, that you shouldn't die and kill him.
No, but Lahashiva, he actually wanted to take him out of the barn. Okay, that gets into what happened over there. But the point is, in terms of there's a style over here that both Reuven and Yehudah are being in character, which the Torah come to teach us some difference between Reuven and Yehudah. So that's simple. Reuven is saying something that doesn't really add anything because it's nonsensical. So it's just another way of saying I'm so certain of it. Which so you're certain of it. Very nice.
It's understandable that Reuven would say that to his brothers if they were younger and he figured they're going to
Right.
obey me.
Right.
It doesn't make that much sense that he assumed that his father trusts him.
Right.
Because his father hasn't demonstrated that he does.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, but it's also it's important that he's telling his father that I'm also a father like you are, right?
Yeah.
So he's basically demanding his father's trust as being equivalent to his father, which is an old problem Reuven has. Which is all about the Bechor as this sort of competing with the father for the position of the leader of the family, right? In a family way, as being the eldest, as it were. So he sort of competes with his father, right? The interesting. The Albag says, this is very Albagian. He says that it's Pasius Gemura. I think this is the Lashon. Wrote it down. Pasius Gemura. It's utter foolishness, and the Torah has an agenda to tell you that Reuven was a great fool. Well, it wasn't a chacham. He says that. I think he says it wasn't a chacham because he was sheichev as bila pilegish aviv. So Torah wants to tell you that only someone who's not a chacham would do such a thing. Those kinds of chatoim come from lack of chacham. Okay, so that's what he says. Just aga.
So he takes
Fine.
the
And it's taka silly, and Reuven was not a chacham.
He's also looking at it to connect it with Reuven's character,
Right.
not just an independent.
Right, exactly. And the Torah wants to teach us Reuven's character, right? Okay, just a few other things. The Yosef ben Azil says Thomas b'shamta. Interesting. This is trying to deal with that. Thomas b'shamta. And the Ramban says it's like a curse. Your curse. In other words, like a deal with Yaakov that there will be a curse from you, that my children will die. Okay.
Similar to what Yaakov did with Reuven.
Right, so that's just what? Right, so it's like, let's make a deal that you can declare that they should die. Okay, still the Thomas. Yeah. Okay, so now, Lamaisa, he said like this. So he said, Im lo yashivenu elecha, then vani yashivenu elecha, right? This is what I commit to being meishivim, which of course is the same lashon as we in the other place where Reuven's intervening, where he intervenes to save Yosef, lahashivoi elaviv. And he didn't ultimately achieve, he didn't accomplish that what he set out to do, which is lahashiv Yosef to his father. Okay, so if we follow the clues and just keep on going with this with the logic that we have over here, that suggests that maybe Reuven already is chayiv to lose two of his children, because if that's the punishment that he earns or deserves for not returning the son to the father. So just like he has to return Binyamin to his father, else he loses two of his children. So now he messed up in his attempt to return Yosef to his father. Okay, so maybe Reuven has to lose two children for that. Yeah,
He didn't say that then.
I know, but if that, I'm just saying, if in as much as we read these two stories together, and here it says that's what is roi. So that suggests.
He lost two, so
Well, he didn't. No, he didn't lose two. No, he didn't. He had 4 children. What do you mean?
No. I'm saying he lost two of his father's children. He failed in both cases.
Oh, no, I wasn't saying that. I was saying,
Not that
okay.
they
No,
were
I was
lost.
saying each one. I was saying if we read this as kefil, let's say, for losing Binyamin, he deserves to lose 2. For not returning Binyamin to his father, he deserves to lose 2.
He should lose
So
one.
then, 1 second. So then, for not returning Yosef, he also deserves to lose 2. However, the reason why Reuven wouldn't lose 2 for then, let's follow the logic over here, is because Reuven did what he could, and then Yehudah said, let's sell him. Yehudah could have saved him, as Chazal say, Vayered, the next parak after Bechis Yosef, Vayered Yehudah meis Echov, Shahivudu Migdulase, because Yehudah, you should have convinced us, he who had power over us, you should have convinced us to bring Yosef back to the father. Okay? So then it's not Reuven who's culpable for not returning Yosef, it's Yehudah who took over. And similarly in our story, ultimately Yehudah is going to take over in terms of Binyamin.
Yehudah lost 2 children.
Exactly. So Yehudah, Taka lost 2 children. That's the story. And this in Perek Yud Ches. And Perek Yud Ches it comes in the middle of the Yosef story, right? The Perek of Yehudah and Tamar. And just this is a review from what we said in Perek Yud Ches. But there we learned that Perek Lamed Tes. I'm sorry, Perek Lamed Ches. Perek Lamed Tes begins with Yosef Hurad Mitzrayim, and Perek Lamed Ches is Yehudah was Yored Me'es Echov. In the Yosef story, they said Haker No, and Yehudah said Haker No, and in Yosef's story, there's a Sir Izim, and in Yehuda's story, there's a Gedi Izim, and Yehudah Taka loses two sons. And not only that, there's a major parallel between Yosef and Yehudah, meaning the fact that Yosef was Hurad Mitzrayim and Yehudah was Vayer Me'es Echov. In other words, they're both separating from their family. Someone pointed this out to me. It's very interesting. Yosef is like a quasi-Av, because he's a quasi-Av. He's somewhat like an Av in a few ways. That's why his sons are Shvatim. And we see that in the Torah, the fact that his career, his life story happens separate from his family. That's okay, but someone pointed out to me that Yehudah has that too, because that's that whole parak. Oh, Yehudah has his own. It's like Av Mitzvah and Yaakov have their stories. Also, in Yehudah, one individual, the Shvatim, has his story. There's Yehudah and Yosef. So Yehudah also has this aspect of this potential. We spoke about this then, that the story of Yehudah is like the story of Yosef, and that they're both seeking kingship. Yosef is becoming a king, and that the story of Yehudah is the birth of Peretz, and so on and so forth. That's the point of that story. The point of the story, Perek Lamed Ches, is the founding of Malchus Beis David. So that's the parallel, okay? The parallel of Yehudah to Yosef, and Yehudah loses 2 children when he is Yored Me'es Echov for his guilt in the loss of Yosef. Okay, so now coming back to our pasuk now, I want to suggest that if we follow this kind of thinking, then actually Reuven's offer does make sense, and actually Yaakov is responding to Reuven's offer. Okay, because if let's take that, they're taking that as the model. What? We'll see. Right, he's rejecting it in a very specific way. Right. We're taking that story as a model. So the one who's guilty for losing Yosef, is Yored Me'ez Echov. He's demoted from the brotherhood, and he loses 2 children. That's what happens. Okay, so Reuven is then offering his father that you kill my 2 children, meaning if you demote me, this is what I want to suggest. If you, the same way they were married Yehudah Migdulasai, the brothers were married Yehudah Migdulasai, and then he lost 2 children. So if you're going to be married me Migdulasai, because you're going to hold me responsible for Binyamin, like my brothers held Yehudah responsible for Yosef. That's what Reuven knows, but Yaakov doesn't. Reuven knows that the brothers held Yehudah responsible for Yosef. Therefore, they kicked him out of the club, and he lost 2 children. So if Yaakov is going to hold Reuven responsible for losing Binyamin, and because of that he's going to murder him, like Yehudah was Yored, then Reuven will lose 2 children. So he's saying, look, that's what he's saying. He's saying, if I don't bring him, it's not like introducing. He's saying, if I don't bring him to you, don't tell me this is only about you, because if I don't bring him to you, I am risking losing 2 of my children. Being the way you're going to respond, if I don't bring him to you, is going to cause 2 of my children to die. You, by your actions, will cause 2 of my children to die. So he's not offering him to some power over killing his children. He's telling him like this. He's telling him, don't say, Oisi Shikaltam is all about me, no one has any skin in the game. Because if you're looking ahead to what might happen, if I don't guarantee Binyamin's security, let's play this out. What's going to happen is you're going to be married me from the brothers, just like the brothers who married Yehudah for not saving Yosef, and that's going to cause 2 of my children to die. So I do care. It makes perfect sense.
Because I'm taking responsibility, therefore I'll be held responsible if I lose it.
Right. Exactly. Because he's taking responsibility. Right. And we spoke about this in when Reuven. This is Midrashim also, but we said in this year that when Reuven comes back and Yosef is not in the barn, he says "Vani ona ani ba." So what that means is, how am I going to be part of the number? Because after Reuven was Sheikh was Belopi like Shav, the pasuk of Ayubin Yaakov Shneim Aser. Reuven needs to be part of the Shneim Aser. It's very important for him. Okay.
Significant number.
Yeah, but it's right. But his personal thing, Yeshua, is only when he's part of the Shneim Aser, and he's concerned that he's not now that Yosef is not there. Okay. So similarly over here, and that's Ichi Reuven Va'al Yomais. Here he offered Shnei Banai Thomas and Behemoth of Mispar. He is part of the number. He's part of the number of the Shnei Aser. Okay. So then Reuven is saying,
also that anyone's masna, even when it's not
right. No. So the question is right. So the question is like this. The question is that this is an interesting shmuz, which is that the Gemara says that happened to Yehudah, who offered v'chatasi l'Avi kol hayom. The question is, why don't we find the same thing by Reuven? Or do we? And if so, why does the Gemara make a point there? We'll soon see that maybe we do find it by Reuven, because there was no shnei banatamis here, right? His children didn't die, right? Okay. So I was thinking it could be because this offer was rejected. Yehudah's offer was accepted, but he was fulfilled it. This offer was rejected and was superseded by Yehudah's offer, so maybe it doesn't count. Right.
Point, he says.
What?
Right.
Right.
I don't accept that deal.
Right.
I don't accept that you have responsibility. So
right. So now let's get to Yaakov's answer. So reading it this way, okay. So how are we reading it? We're reading it that Reuven is saying, let's replay the same way Vayered Yehudah Me'ez Echov, and then Yehudah lost 2 of his children. If that would have been me, the reason why he didn't lose 2 children by Yosef is because it was transferred to Yehudah. But now that we're dealing with the same stories happening again, same danger, Yosef Einenu, Shimon Einenu, V'Sviram Tikachu. So if I'll be the one that's guilty for Binyamin, then you, Yaakov, will be married to me, and 2 of my children will die. So what's Yaakov's response? Vayomer lo yered b'ni imochem. My son will not go down with you. Ki achiv meis v'hu levado nishar. He's the only one that's left. Ukra'o asay b'derech shatelechu bo v'heradetem es sivosi b'yagoin sho'el. So think about this. Lo yered b'ni imochem. He's not just saying I'm not letting my son descend. He says I won't let my son descend with you, which suggests that you can go down, but my son is not going down with you, right? So would one thing to say, no, I'm not letting my son leave me. It doesn't say that. It says my son is not going down with you. Furthermore, in the same pasuk, there's 2 Yeridas. There's a Yerida to Mitzrayim, and there's a Yerida to Sha'ol. And this we spoke about back at the beginning of Vayeshev. There's this parallel between going down to the pit, going down to the grave, and going down to Mitzrayim. And in the Mizmor it says, Halisa min Sha'ol nafshi chi yisanim yodivar ma betza b'dom. Yehudah said ma betza, and Yosef is in the pit, which symbolizes Sha'ol. Like Yosef went down to the pit, Yaakov says, Erid al b'ni avel Sha'ol. So there's the underworld, there's the bar, and there's Mitzrayim. Yosef, who are Mitzrayim? The Yerida. And the Zohar says it. The Zohar says that the bar is Mitzrayim, which is Gehenna. And the bar is symbolic of Mitzrayim, and Mitzrayim stands for Gehenna. Fine. So look at this pasuk. So he's saying like this. He's saying, so there's 2 Yeridas in the pasuk. Yerida to Mitzrayim, there's Yerida to Sha'ol. And he's saying, my son is not going down with you. Which basically is telling them, you guys want to go down, fine. I don't care. My son is not going down with you. And of course he calls them Beni, which is telling them that you're all not my sons. So he's more or less saying, you can go to hell, like literally. He's telling them, by saying Lo Yered B'ni Imachem, and I don't want to go down to Sha'ol, so the implication is, I don't care about you. You can have as many Yeridas to Mitzrayim as you wish. It doesn't concern me in any way. The only one I'm concerned with is Binyamin. That's all I care about. That's what he suggests by calling him Beni and saying Hu Levad Inishah. He's saying all I care about is that. You can be Yerid as long as you want, but he will not be Yerid. So therefore, he is responding to Reuven because Reuven said, I'm going to have a Yerida too. What's going to happen if I don't bring it back? I'm going to be Yerid. Like Yehudah was Yerid. Like Yosef was also Yerid. But we'll soon see Yosef's Yerida. So that's a different outcome, right? But there's this whole Yerida theme. And there's a dangerous Yerida. The bar is dangerous as a Yerida. Mitzrayim is dangerous as a Yerida. And Yosef somehow survives. Okay, that's the whole Yosef story. But Be'etzem, they're going down to this. They're playing with this danger of being Yerid and being gone. So Yaakov says, okay, Reuven's afraid that he's going to be Yored, Migdulasai, and then he's going to lose his children. And says, Yaakov, I don't care. It means nothing to me because you could all have Yeridas and my son will not have Yeridas. So Yaakov's response, I'm not saying why he doesn't, I'm not saying why it doesn't offer, why the offer doesn't mean anything. Right?
He's not responsible for the offer.
Right. He's not responding to, okay, why isn't this persuasive? But he's saying the Yerida that you are offering to undergo, right, which will then be of matter to you, to me matters not at all. The only thing that matters to me is that my son doesn't have a Yerida, and therefore, and all of you can be Yerid. As far as I'm concerned, you can all be Yerid as long as he survives.
Chazal doesn't say that Yaakov answered that your children are also mine.
Mm-hmm.
So is that contrary to what you say?
Absolutely, it's contrary.
But it is contrary, right? Because according to this, he's suggesting he doesn't care about anyone's children. Right. Well, he doesn't care about Reuven more than. I mean, Reuven and his children are equal. He equally doesn't care about any of them.
Right. And again, Shimpan.
What?
Shimpan.
No. I'm not sure. I mean, yeah, but they probably work together.
The way you're reading it, was Reuven making an offer, or was Reuven just saying a reality? Like, this is what's going to happen.
So it's sort of an offer and a reality because, as Sean pointed out, it's only once Reuven takes responsibility that then he would be the one to be demoted if he doesn't bring him back. So it's a little of both. Right? In other words, the only reason Reuven would be married is because Reuven is the one who's responsible. So first Reuven has to take responsibility. And then because he's responsible, therefore he would be Yared. And, oh no, maybe Yaakov is saying basically you guys are all demoted, right? Or maybe you could say it like that. Because Yaakov over here is saying Bini. You have to realize this. Yaakov is saying Bini, and we have to take this very literally. That means there's only one Shevet left. Okay, let's read it that way.
Yeah.
So you basically all are Yared already. No, that's what he's saying. No, so he's saying you're offered to be Yared. There's not going to be any Yared Me'echov. You're all gone. You're all done.
Which means that Reuven's children don't matter.
I understand. I'm not addressing that. No, I hear. I'm just saying the point about that Yaakov is responding to the offer. He's saying, yes, Reuven, you're not risking anything because all of you could go down to Mitzrayim today, as far as I'm concerned. You're all written out of my legacy, and there's only one left. Right, there's only one left. Right. This is very real, and I will show you how real this is. Again, meaning at this point, there's only one benefit. That's why you have to read this pasuk. At this point, we wouldn't call them Bnei Yisrael. We were talking about Ben Yaakov would be Binyamin, and that's it. That's how Perek Mem Beis ends. We spoke about Yeshaya Seif Perek Tes. Yeshaya Seif Perek Tes. Okay, without going into the rayas, the point is like this. There at the end of the Perek Tes pasuk Chav Beis, it says Yaakov will eventually will not be embarrassed. His face will not turn white. Will not be white when he sees his children. That means there's this risk of Yaakov not having all his children together, and when his children are all together, then the Kedishu is Kadesh Yaakov. Kadesh Yaakov is a reference to Yosef. Say that we spoke about this psukim a lot. So in other words, there's Yaakov is at a risk of being boyish and embarrassed and white when his children are not together with him, and eventually he's going to reunite with them. Okay, when he's going to reunite with them, this is in Perek Lamed there further. So the children, Bnei Yisrael here, or in the Mashal, Bnei Yaakov, are Banim Sairim. Why are they Banim Sairim? Because they're doing cancel and not asking Hashem. Which is what? Ha'hochim l'redes Mitzrayim ufi lo sha'alu. Okay, and this parak is Nidrash constantly in Vayeshev, corresponding to the descent to Mitzrayim. The problem with the descent to Mitzrayim, which was foreseen and had to happen, we're talking about this descent to Mitzrayim of Bnei Yisrael, of the Shvatim. It had to happen and it was foreseen. The problem with it is that it happened without asking the Pi Hashem. Meaning the Shvatim caused it through Hester by doing something wrong, by selling Yosef. And then they're living in this state of going down to, of Hashem not guiding them as he was the first half of not the first half, but the story of the Avis. From Lech Lecha on, it's Hashem guiding them, and now Hashem is not guiding them. That's Pi Hashem Lo Sha'alu, Pi Lo Sha'alu. So the descent to Mitzrayim happens without conversation with Hashem, and therefore they're called Banim Sairim. So similarly, in this story right here, Yaakov is disowning his children. So you see the pasuk Perek Tes and Yeshaya ends when Yaakov is going to be back with his children. That's when everything's going to be fine. But they're Banim Sairim because they go down to Mitzrayim without asking Hashem. So when the Shvatim are causing the descent to Mitzrayim to happen in Hester, that's when they're like Banim Sairim, and Yaakov writes them off. And then only when they're going to be reunited, eventually they're going to be reunited, when Yaakov is reunited with his children and everyone's happy in Mitzrayim, then everything's Mitasei Shleim and everything finally comes back together. But at this point, they're like Banim Sairim.
What does Filoi Sha'ol mean exactly? Ask Hashem. When did the Shvatim supposed to ask Hashem?
Oh, if they'd be Nevi'im, they would ask Hashem. They think they're trying to be Nevi'im. They want to be Nevi'im. That was the whole machlekes between them and Yosef.
They should have been it, but they weren't on the dialogue.
But they lost their Nevuah. Yeah, the Navi Micha says that basically if you sell your brother, if you sell people for money, you lose Nevuah. Basically says that.
There's the other way around. It starts
That's
off.
why they didn't say it.
Why?
You say they sold it because they didn't have Nevuah.
Right,
So
no.
Because he was choosing.
No, they sold him because they held that you shouldn't be a dreamer, rather you should be Nevi'im. But by selling him, they made themselves not know the Mishpat. They made themselves evil people who don't know the Mishpat and don't know the ways of Hashem, and therefore Yaster Panav Mehem and Laila Lachem Mechazayin. That's why they never became the Nevi'im that they were aspiring to be. Or that they were. Perhaps they were Nevi'im until they sold Yosef. I don't know.
That's why they didn't say Klokais.
What?
That's why they didn't see the close rights.
Right. But Yisrael named by Yeru, right. That was the failed Nevuah.
No, I'm just saying, it sounds like what caused them to go to Mitzrayim was because they sold Yosef. Right?
What do you mean? That's how they ended up going down to Mitzrayim. Right? In other words, in a different story.
All right, but Filei Sha'ol has to be before that.
Yeah. Filei Shalom is like this. In an alternative history, Avram Avinu was told that you can do and everyone's doing Nevuah in Eretz Yisrael, and then the Nevuah comes. Okay, time to go down to Mitzrayim. Okay, go down to Mitzrayim. Fine, that would be that's Pisha. Right, but now, right, exactly. Instead, the Yehudah to Mitzrayim happened in this way of Hester, which is when they, by selling him, doing this act, which causes them to not know the Mishpat and Hashem not to speak to them. So it's a paradigm of Hester. And therefore, so my pursuit is that Banim Sairim, so too Yaakov writes them off until he reunites them. At this point, none of them count. The only one that counts is Binyamin. Okay, so now we have Yosef was Hurad and Yehudah was Yered Mitzrayim, and Reuven offers to be Yered, and his father says you all Yeredim, as far as I'm concerned, because like we saw, Yeredim L'Redis Mitzrayim Pilei Sha'alu, you going down to Mitzrayim is Yerida. I mean the themes of Yerida that are pick up from Vayeshev. You read it to the Bar, you read it to Sha'al, and you read it to Mitzrayim. So the point is, he's telling the brothers, if you are Yered to Mitzrayim without asking Hashem, so you're, it's like you're Yered to Sha'al, and it's like you're Yered Me'ez Echov. So all the things go together, all those Yeridis. So therefore,
He's the one who sent him to Mitzrayim the first time.
who? Yaakov?
Yeah.
Redu Shama. Right? This is Redu. Redu Shama. V'shiv Rulana Misham. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, but, right. We have to go back to what we said over there about Yaakov. There's a lot on that pasuk by Yaakov, Kirshever, and Lamat Yisrael. We have to look back. There's some good stuff there. Okay, so 1 second. So I was just saying that Yosef Hurad, Yosef also had 2 children, but he had 2 children. Well, Yosef Yulad Shnei Vonim. So Yosef had a Yerida too, but his Yerida worked out. So there's this whole question about what's going to happen with this Yerida, right? Yehudah was Yered Me'ez Echov, and that was a demotion, and therefore he loses 2 children. Yosef was Hurad Mitzrayim, which is a demotion, but Yosef survives that, and 2 children are born to him. What?
Yehudah also survives that.
Eventually, when he's Oila Tumnasa, by the way, and there's a whole Aliyah thing there. Oila Tumnasa Legis Tzayna, he gets out of that Yerida, but the beginning of that Yerida
he loses children, and he gets out of it, and he has more, and he has twins.
Yes, and he has twins too, right, that also, right. So Yehudah has twins, in other words, there's this question about the Shnei Banai, right, to have them or not have them, right. Yehudah also eventually has an Aliyah, which is E'ele B'Samar, and his wife's name was Elit, or Alis, that's Alis Al-Kulana. It's another aspect, because this whole thing is what to do about this Yerida, and eventually has the Aliyah. Okay. So to over here, right, last pasuk was Alayhu Chulana, and there's this whole question, that's where the Yerida comes in over here, because at Alis Al Chulana, there's a question of whether there's going to be a Yerida, like Yehudah had, or you're going to have an Aliyah, like Yehudah also had, with his wife Alis, his first wife Alis, whatever, with the Torah. And then, by the way, we spoke about that in Paragraph Ches, about El Besamar and Shirashim. El Besamar, eventually Tamar is Yehudah's Aliyah.
So repaired surface to relate if Mashim, the 2 sons they lost out?
What?
Is that the idea? Like 2 sons died and these 2 replaced them?
I don't know.
They were better sons,
I guess. I don't know.
One of them.
Okay, so anyways, does anyone know if Yehudah ever lost 2 sons? What? What are you gonna say?
No, it's interesting that just the parallel to Malcolm killing 2 sons that left.
Right. Yeah, the 2 sons dying seems to be a thing. Also, there's because not of an Avihu, and it's 2 out of 4. What?
No, he's don't have no.
Yeah, there seems to be like a thing for some reason. I'm not sure. There's an Eli, the 2 sons of Eli, Chafli and Pinchas. So there might be this thing about what?
Yeah.
No, there's this theme about 2 sons dying. It seems. I don't know.
No,
Okay.
Rio are 2 out of 4.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, did Reuven ever lose to the Shnei Banai Thomas? Says about Turim, Dasan and Aviram. Yeah. There's also a Gemachi. The Gemachi doesn't even add up, so I'm not sure, whatever. We know what the Gemachi is.
doesn't add up.
He says, Es Shnei is Gemachi Dasan and Aviram. It's not. Another gear says, Es Shnei is Gemachi Elu Dasan and Aviram. It's not that either. Okay, whatever. We don't typically do Gemachis.
No,
but
Dasan and Aviram and not
Oin.
Not
So what? So it's
No,
again
two.
2. Right. And it's 2 and maybe a survivor. Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. Right.
This is
Lemais, that's what he says, interestingly enough. Which I just want to tell too that they also went down to Sha'il, right? Vayedu Chaim Sha'ila.
Mhm.
And they said Loi Na'ale. That was a big thing, Loi
Right.
Na'ale, right?
Right.
So this question of there's going to be a Yehudah and Aliyah, and sort of comes back to Yosef, to Reuven and his guilt for Yosef, because since he threw him into the bar, so there is a possibility, as we said, that he should lose 2 of his children. Okay, no, but really Yehudah does. But eventually, 2 of Reuven's descendants also go down to Sha'il. Right?
Mhm.
Okay. One last thing I want to say on this pasuk, on the last pasuk here, which we mentioned already, but I just want to repeat it, that Yaakov is concerned about an asain. The only places where the word asain appears is in this story, twice, or maybe 3 times, where he's concerned about an asain. Once here, and then I think it's repeated in Vayigash. Okay, and also in Mishpatim, where it says ki yinatzu anashim v'nagfu isha har v'yatzu yiladeha v'lo yeh asain anish anish, right? Kashi yashlu ala ba'ala isha v'rasa flilim v'im asain yeh v'nasada nefesh tachas nafesh. So there's a woman who loses her children, yiladeha. She has twins. For some reason, this woman has twins. I don't know why. And I understand the first to explain why. And I looked in the Mechilta, it should say only twins. What about one? What's a reboy? I don't know. So talking about twins. So when a woman and her 2 babies are lost, that's the asain. So Yaakov's great loss of Rachel, which is what he's been struggling with ever since. If he loses Rachel and Yosef and Binyamin, that's the asain, right? So that's everything is really takes us back to the Ishahara, to Rachel, who miraculously had these children, and that's really what Yaakov really is thinking about all the time.
So then the Hadash is
that's
Rachel, Dafka.
I think so, yeah. I think it's really all about Rachel. Yeah. The Zohar says this. You could see this in Vayechi, but the Zohar says many things the Zohar says is always Mamash Aimek Apshat. But that the way the Zohar expresses it always is a very beautiful, flowery way. But it's Aimek Apshat Vayechi. But the Zohar says as follows: that whenever Yaakov saw Yosef, it was as if he was seeing Rachel. I remember how weird it sees that in Vayechi, but it's very clear. Reuven Echel Filoti or something. And he starts talking about Rachel. What are you talking about Rachel for? All he wants to talk about is Rachel. Even the brachas he gives to Yosef, Shadaim Baracham, it's always thinking about Rachel, it seems. And Yosef is Yifetei Mare, Ki Imai, as the Ibn Ezra comments. He's as mother is called that too, and he's the only man that's called that. So Yosef is the possibility of Rachel's salvation. Additionally, it's done. I mean, I don't know where this fits in, but I said this also I'll be pshat, and then I found in the Medrash that when Yosef's dream of Hashem Davar, Yaakov thought that Tchias HaMesim is going to happen, and the Yerech is going to be Rachel. So Yaakov is still waiting for Rachel until he goes to B'tayim. It's in the Medrash, Bereshit Rabbah. I think it's Bereshit Rabbah. So everything is about getting back Rachel, and the asain is what's it called? Is to lose Rachel and the 2 children. Okay. Now, is he still getting back Rachel if Binyamin survives, but not Yosef? I don't know. Whatever. They figure that out. I mean, because the asain in that story, the asain is when the woman dies.
Yeah.
I'm saying the asain is the woman and the children die. Okay, we have to figure that out. But I'm
Different
saying
context.
different context. But also no, I'm saying there's a possibility of the woman coming back to life. If Yosef's still alive, or maybe at least if Binyamin's alive, neither of which ultimately happened, which why not? Okay, but 1 second, just
Well, some of her are still alive.
What?
Some of her are still alive.
Some?
Some of her are still alive.
Right, of course.
Similar shot. If he has some of her, he hasn't completely lost her.
Right. So it's not an asain. Right. 1 second, there's one more thing I wanted to say. Rachel coming back. Asain is to. Oh, right. No, I don't know. I just found it interesting that Thomas according to that pshat, that Thomas over here means Tanish. Similarly, in the Parsha of the Isha Haaretz, it's Sada Nefesh Tachas Nefesh. According to one Madam is Mammon, because the Skavan Lar Gezeh. But okay, Nefesh Tachas Nefesh is Mammon. So Nefesh Tachas Nefesh is Mammon. So Thomas could be Tanish. That's it.
That's funny.
Yeah, it is funny, but it's not worth saying.